Good morning, my friend, and welcome to Namaste today, an insightful way to begin your day. I'm your heartfelt host and the Sensei to serious joy, Christopher Witecki. This audio blogcast is for Wednesday, May 10th, 2017. Welcome back, my friend and earthly neighbor. Namaste. Today is a powerful day in spiritual history. We have a full moon at step 20, and Sensei says this is the grand turning point of our lives. In today's zodiac weather, I'll talk about the planets and that full moon. And then later in our tea time, I thought I would look back into American history and look into our future, and I've got some news for you. It's not what you think. But first, let's take a look at today's moods and your zodiac weather. This zodiac weather is for Wednesday, May 10th, 2017. And my global forecast for planet Earth is cloudy but extremely passionate. A full moon at step 20 invokes an emotional future, and Mercury has now moved to step 26, which means it's time to commit. Let's take a look at the planets. Happy full moon, my brothers and sisters. We have a powerful step 20 full moon that will come to full apex around 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific. And as I reported yesterday, this full moon is razor sharp. In fact, you could call today the dividing line between your old reality and your new reality. Now, step 20 is a very passionate degree, and it's also a degree where, in my experience, we often feel vulnerable. That means you may have irrational anxiety. You may be checking the doors twice. You may feel unsafe but not know why. These are all the natures of step 20. And what you want to do between the beginning of the day and the apex is basically reassure or check your locks, so to speak. Check your boundaries. Reaffirm with yourself how far you will allow things to go, how far you will allow things to feel, for instance, and where that line is for yourself. So the first half of the day is really about emotional exploration, figuring out where you feel vulnerable, and figuring out where you need to draw some lines, or as I like to say, drop some step zeros. Now, this is an incredibly powerful day looking at the planets. It certainly is a line between two worlds. For one, the moon in Scorpio is step 0. That means as the moon goes full, you will emotionally come to some sort of very deep, very necessary personal boundary. And because it's step 20, it's actually a personal boundary that relates to our future. So I don't really predict a lot of people having to draw the hammer down against things they don't want in their life. I think most of this is about holding space for a possible future. That in your future, you want to feel certain things and you don't want to feel other things. And it is that dividing line of the future that suddenly puts you into future mode and takes you out of the past. Now, some other interesting clues that are adding up to the day. Mercury, which is still in its shadow period, has reached step 26 Aries, which means that our minds are coming to conclusions now about who we are or who we intend to be. And this conclusion will be sort of ratified in the next 24 hours as Uranus catches back up to Mercury at step 26, and both of these planets trine Saturn retrograde directly at step 26. So you can see, as soon as the full moon ends, as soon as it has been completed, as soon as we emotionally have held space for the future, we immediately move into this clarity of who we believe we are and where we believe we are headed. Also adding some rather powerful vibration to this full moon is Pluto. Pluto is retrograde at step 19 and is trining the sun at step 20. So this is another reason why I believe this is a hard dividing line between the past and the future. And because Pluto is retrograde, this tells me that this divided line is somewhat fated. This is something we intended to do. Now, looking around the chart for fated planets, we have a number of planets talking to Spirit today. For one, Venus is opening up to step 7 Aries. So this tells me that we are opening up to our spiritual or the spiritual part of our character. Uranus is still at step 25, which adds to a 7, which means we are innovating the highest vision of our spiritual character. Chiron is at step 27, Pisces, which means we are going forward to heal our spiritual side. And Neptune is at step 13, Pisces, which means we are going for spiritual breakthrough. So as you can hear, there is breakthrough and dividing lines all over the planet. But wait, there's a couple more. Mars today is at step 13, just like Neptune. In fact, the two are squaring, which tells me that we've come to a point where our ego, Mars, is now in the way or having conflicts with our spiritual revolution, Neptune at step 13. And so this is also the turning point as well. The turning point is that we are going to look back on our old ego and really move forward with this new ego, represented by Venus at step 7 and Mercury at step 26. And this is a birth moment for this new ego and this new agenda. Mars is at step 13, Gemini, so all this ego talk is actually theoretical and in our minds, but still it has a lot of relevance, because where we point our mind is where we intend to go and we intend to grow. So this full moon really is the emotional divorce of yesterday and tomorrow. And my advice is just to be very clear on those divorce terms, because this is just the beginning and we're only holding space for a new future. One last little piece of gold I'll give you. The North Node has moved into Leo today. It is officially at step 29. So as we make this dividing line, the universe is officially saying this is for the greatest grand mastery of our own heart, Leo. And grand mastery is step 29. So in my opinion, we are creating the space, step 0 full moon, for a future of self-grand mastery. Now that leads me to today's tea time topic, a little bit of astrological history. Go steep yourself some tea, and let's have our daily tea time. Hello, my friend, and welcome to our tea time. Today's tea time topic is, it's not what you think. And what I'm referring to is your future. When I look at the planets, I realize no matter what we think the future is, we're probably incorrect about it. And I get this analysis really from the planet Pluto. Pluto is the ruler of step 0. Pluto holds space for a new future, and that's really how it destroys things. It's known to be the destruction planet, the planet that runs things down, but what it's really doing is plowing things down to make room for the future. And because Pluto moves so slowly, it's an excellent planet to kind of determine history at large. Now, at the moment, Pluto's at step 19, which means we're holding space for a new manifestation, step 19, and it's in Capricorn, so we're holding space for a new manifestation of how we control things. And that definitely means our government, our businesses, our taxes, everything. So we're in suspension about how we should control things. And Pluto is going to retrograde back down the degrees this year, and it won't actually move to step 20 until next year, February 2018. Once Pluto moves to step 20, we'll now be holding space for our future. It's my opinion that any degree above 20 is really about the future and starts to be about planning the future. It's those middle degrees that are about the now. So when we start thinking about the future, that means we're going to start making changes now for the future, and that means that we will begin to change our future and what our future can bring as of next February. Now, the reason why I say the future is not what you think is because Pluto, the blind spot, has not even yet moved into the consciousness of our future, and when it does, it's moving into our systems of decision and control, which means we literally have no idea what's beyond this Pluto step 20 fence. So as I like to say, go ahead and make your plans, but plan on changing your plans. Now, we do have some visibility as what may happen. We can look at the last time that Pluto was in Capricorn. And that was, my friend, during the birth of the United States. The United States chart has Pluto at step 27 Capricorn. And so at the moment of the Declaration of Independence, which is how we get the astrological chart for the United States, at that moment, Pluto was holding space for taking action, 27, 2 plus 7 makes 9, for taking action for and towards a new government, Capricorn, a way of governing. And not just a way of governing, but a way of taking actions to govern. Now, if you know your American history, you know that by the time the Declaration of Independence had happened, there was already a lot of uproar in our nation. And our Pluto return will actually happen in February of 2022. That's when Pluto first moves to step 27, or first moves to the spot it was at during the Declaration of Independence. But it's been my experience as an astrologer that by the time Pluto arrives at the degree, it's already been bulldozed down. In fact, we were at step 27, we weren't thinking about a new nation, we were signing the declaration. It was already happening. So what I usually do is look back a couple of steps. I've noticed in my clients' charts that Pluto really starts to bulldoze about 2 degrees or 2 steps before the step you're looking at. So in other words, if we're concerned about step 27 in 2022, we should look at when step 25 happens, because it'll be at step 25 that you really start to see a little turmoil. Step 25, in my opinion, will be when shift starts to hit the fan. And if you want to know, step 25 will happen in January 2021. So in other words, 1 year before our nation's Pluto return, shift will begin to hit the fan. Things will start to really heat up. In fact, actually at that very same moment, Saturn will be at step 4 Aquarius, the Grand Master Aquarius step. And that means that we will also be taking action for some sort of innovation. So in some senses, if you're planning your own life, let me put it to you a little simply. This year, until next February, is your time to get your shift together. This is the time to put up your walls and build your foundation up to step 19, have everything in order, because we really don't know what's going to happen once Pluto hits step 20. This will be part of the human history that we are all here to write. This is part of the story we were born to live, in my opinion. This is the big event we all showed up for, which is this rewriting of the rules, the rewriting of maybe the Constitution, and probably the evolution of corporate business in America, because that's something that we weren't even talking about in the first American Revolution. So you have basically this year until February to get your shift together, and then next year in 2018, we'll begin to start to unveil the unknown. And I think as Pluto moves to step 21 and step 22, human society is up for a lot of shock. Like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And probably new territory. This is probably new for all of our stories. In other words, this will be something our souls have not experienced before, because this is the farthest humankind has gone as of yet. We're standing on top of all the knowledge of all of our history that we currently remember. And so this is as far as the lead hero has ever gotten. And starting next year, we start to open up a new quest. So you have this year to get your quest together. But I thought to myself, when will things really start to get interesting? And I thought, looking back in American history, I guess the American Revolution probably got really interesting at the Boston Tea Party, right? The Boston Tea Party, I think, was when it became pretty clear the colonists are pissed and something's going to happen. So I looked up the planets of the Boston Tea Party, and you're going to be shocked when I tell you the Boston Tea Party actually happened today on May 10th. But the year was 1773, 244 years ago. But it was on May 10th, so it's very interesting that this all comes to mind today. It was all accident, by the way. Spirit led me. And Pluto, at that moment for the Boston Tea Party, was involved in a powerful grand trine in Earth, and Pluto was at step 23. Now, you probably know step 22 is the breakdown, where everyone kind of breaks down. So I imagine that when Pluto is at step 22, the colonists are really breaking down and freaking out. But then the solution, step 23, which adds to a 5, that came out with the Boston Tea Party. That was the first solution. Here's the weird thing. Pluto was involved in a grand trine with Uranus, which was also exactly at step 23, and the Sun was conjuncting Uranus at that moment. So there was definitely re-evolution in the air, and they were grand trining with Neptune in Virgo. So Neptune is kind of where God is shedding light, and so God was shedding light during the Boston Tea Party on how reality, Virgo, ought to be. Now, when I bounce ahead to our own Pluto return in February 2022, there are some similar planets that will be happening. And when shift hits the fan, we'll have some similarities as well. For one, Uranus is once again in Taurus, just like it was during the American Revolution. So Uranus will once again be back in Taurus. Neptune this time is not pointing to Virgo, but it will be pointing in Pisces, which means the universe will be trying to have us take a higher spiritual light this time versus trying to have a higher reality. And that's an interesting aspect of it as well. But Saturn will actually be in Aquarius. During the American Revolution, Saturn was in Libra at the time, and so we were trying to have an authority of justice, Libra. This time when we go through our Pluto return, Saturn will be in Aquarius, which in my opinion will be the universe saying that it's time for an absolute change, and we'll be taking responsibility in our innovation of our species, Aquarius. So I would imagine that we have some very interesting times ahead indeed, my friend. And like the title says, no matter what you think the future is, I'm pretty sure it's not what you think. If we were to fast forward or go backwards in time to the colonists before the revolution, I wonder if the idea of leaving Great Britain was in any of their minds up until then. I wonder if they grew up thinking that would happen. I don't think so. I think that political events turn to certain ways. Of course, Americans do not like to be taxed. Business owners are getting hurt. King George was being very greedy. And I don't think any of the colonists, when they were born or grew up, expected to be in a war with Great Britain for freedom. That said, whatever happens for us, once Pluto moves into step 20, I would argue it's not what you think. It will be something we haven't thought of. And that's why we're going to go through the experience, is because we're going to experience and thinking through a future we have yet to be able to experience. So today, as you are celebrating the full moon and holding space for the future, go ahead and make your plans, but plan to change your plan, because I think it's not what you think. All right, my friend, that's all I have for this cosmic full moon day. I'll be back tomorrow with more. Enjoy your full moon rituals. Remember, I love you, and live, love, be.
Live, love, be.